listening to Sound Moves, the podcast about real estate in the Puget Sound region and sound advice for your life. I am Paul Graff, your host, real estate agent with RE/MAX Elite Brokers and life coach. Today's episode, I will share a little bit from a Brian Buffini masterclass that I went to last week in Dallas, Texas. Fantastic seminar. And for you that don't know, Brian Buffini is one of the top real estate coaches in the world. He runs a company called Buffini and Company in California. And the whole weekend was just about networking with other great agents from around the country and learning some key things about our industry and how we can better serve our clients, things like that. So one of the classes Brian taught was called Good Habits for a Good Life. In this class, we touched on why life doesn't feel good right now. We explored our personal situations, and then we developed plans moving forward, the good habits, so we can have a better future, the good life. Here are some thought-provoking and interesting and shocking statistics, actually, about our life situations today. This is all data about the United States and pertaining to the last 2 years or so of the pandemic, unless otherwise noted. And for this report, we're going to focus on the 5 categories: financial, business, personal, family, and spiritual. So in the category of financial, here's some interesting statistics for you. The bottom 10% of income earners in the United States, that is earning less than $10,500, is in the top 10% of income in the world. Total household debt is now at $15.6 trillion, up $1 trillion from 2020. The government received $4.05 trillion in revenues. That seems like quite a bit, but they also spent $6.82 trillion. And then the average savings account balances for American households in 2019 were $41,600, with a median of only $5,300. In the employment category, unemployment is at 3.9%. That is 63 million unemployed. This does not count underemployed, though, which are those working only part-time. And self-employed numbers are back up to the pre-COVID numbers of 14.9 million. So those are people I like working with as a commercial real estate agent, people who are self-employed. And if any of you are listening and looking for space, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to help you find something. So for personal, in the personal category, in 2019, there were 12 million people who thought seriously about suicide. 3.5 million people attempted suicide. 1.4 million people succeeded. And there were 100,000 people who overdosed, which was up 28% year over year. These numbers are all coming from the CDC website. That's very sad. 42% of U.S. adults reported a weight gain during the pandemic on the average of 29 pounds, and there are 93.3 million adults struggling with obesity and 13.7 million children struggling with obesity. Since stay-at-home orders were implemented, overdoses have increased by 18%. And 40% of adults struggle with mental health and alcoholism. I'm going to share a quote with you guys right now from Napoleon Hill. He says, "Every adversity, every failure, and every heartache carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit." In the family data category, the current divorce rate in the U.S. is 2.9 persons per 1,000 people. The U.S. divorce rate is among one of the highest in the world. There are currently over 750,000 divorces in the U.S. each year, and most Americans who file for divorce do so between January and March. I'm going to share another quote with you guys right here before I go on to spiritual data. This comes from Martin Luther King Jr. He says, "We must accept finite disappointment, but we must never lose infinite hope." So in the spiritual category, we have been on a steady decline for a number of years as far as those who attend church. Traditionalists, so I was born before 1946, since 1998-2000, they are down 11 percentage points in church attendance. Baby boomers, those born between 1946 and 1964, they're down 9% since 98-2000 in church attendance. And Generation X, born 1965-1990, they're down 12%. Millennials weren't part of the original reporting in 1998-2000, but they are down from 2008, 2010 to 2020. They are down 15% in church attendance. So some sobering and shocking statistics there, but that is not where we have to end up. So how do we improve on our current situation? This is the key part about this podcast. No wonder people seem stressed and depressed, but the circumstances we find ourselves in today are not where we will be in the future. There are some ways to help us get to a better position in life with less stress and more joy. So today we're going to do a little bit of a interactive session, and I'm going to walk you through an exercise that we did in class. So if you have a pen and paper handy, you can draw 5 circles on a piece of paper representing each of the 5 categories that we talked about earlier. So financial, business, personal, family, and spiritual. Now on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you stand in these 5 categories? Do you see room for improvement in any of these? I know when I first did this, I ended up with one category that only had a 3 in it. So don't be afraid to be honest and give yourself some low scores if that's where you feel you are. I'm going to share with you guys another quote here by John D. Rockefeller. He says, "Don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great." So this is kind of our motivation to take where we're at and move towards something even greater. So even if you have a category that has a 7 or 8 in it, there is still room for improvement. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So now go to the lowest ranked category and think of one thing you can do today to improve that number going forward, even if it is just an increase from 3 to 4. This is kind of a mindset I take from Dave Ramsey on financing, where you get a small win, which motivates you to bigger wins. So think of one thing you can do in a low category today that will help you moving forward, even if it's a small increase from 3 to 4 or something like that. Then with all 5 categories, I want you to come up with a 10-day goal. Why 10 days? Well, it's small enough time period to stay with the goal and still long enough to see some results. When you're done with your 10-day goals, I want you to put them on a separate piece of paper, what your goals are, and stick them on your bathroom mirror or someplace you'll see them regularly to keep reminding you about what those goals are and to stay focused on those for the next week and a half or so. When you're done with your 10-day goals, then I want you to create 10-month goals. And then, when you're done with your 10-month goals, let's create goals that go beyond that to 3 to 5 years. What are some of the goals you guys have come up with? Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? What kind of things are you going to be doing? How are you going to be impacting the lives of those around you in a positive way? I'd love to hear what some of you guys have. So feel free to reach out to me at paulgraff@remax.net, or you can even call or text to 425-205-8810. As I said, I'd love to hear about some of your goal setting. How does all this make you feel about your current situation? Do you see a way to get beyond where you are at today to where you want to be in the future? And then I'm going to leave you with a few more quotes here. All who have accomplished great things have had a great aim, have fixed their gaze on a goal which was high, one which sometimes seemed impossible. That's from Orson Swett Martin. This one here from Pablo Picasso. He says, our goals can only be reached through a vehicle of a plan, in which we must fervently believe, and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success. And then finally, this one from Earl Nightingale. It says, success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal.